Last year, my ex-wife had an affair and decided to leave me. Oddly enough, I felt a sense of relief when it happened. From the outside, our marriage might have looked good, but on the inside, it was completely empty. For years, I felt broken down due to the mental and financial strain she put on me. She had a habit of taking large sums of money from my account, leaving me struggling to pay our bills. Whenever I confronted her about it, she turned it around on me, blaming me for not earning enough money. No matter what I did, it was never good enough for her. Everything I did seemed to annoy her or make her angry. I would try to plan dates for us or organize family activities in hopes of spending quality time together, but she was never interested. She would complain or get upset, preferring to stay in bed and sleep instead. Eventually, I stopped trying to include her in anything, which of course led to more complaints from her. She accused me of keeping the children away from her, even though she showed no interest in participating in the first place. After some time, she began spending nights away from home. Initially, she would say she was staying at a friend's house, someone I hardly knew, but when I asked questions, she became irritated and told me it was none of my business where she was. When my ex-wife decided she wanted a divorce, I found myself in a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was really worried about what my life would look like after the divorce. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel relieved that there was an end in sight to our unhappy marriage. I made it a point to carefully read all the documents her lawyer sent over. It turned out her lawyer wasn't very careful, making a lot of mistakes in the paperwork. These errors ended up delaying our divorce hearing by several months. Every time I spotted a mistake, I would send the documents back without signing them. Then, his office would have to correct and resend them, but often they would make new mistakes or repeat the old ones. There were some pretty big mistakes in the paperwork, too. They misspelled my name, her name, got both our birth dates wrong, and even messed up our child's name and birth date. They listed children that weren't ours, got our marriage date wrong, and even had our home address incorrect. They included properties we didn't own, pets we didn't have, and businesses that weren't ours, even suggesting a settlement involving $500,000 for businesses we didn't own. One of the drafts even had her lawyer's own name spelled incorrectly, which I found so funny, I laughed about it while I was in the bathroom. It took about 7 drafts before they managed to fix most of these mistakes. But even the final draft that was submitted to the court still had major errors in it. This whole process was frustrating, but also a bit amusing because of the sheer number of mistakes and how basic they were. It made a difficult situation a little more bearable, knowing that at least these mix-ups were slowing things down and giving me time to prepare for what was next. During our divorce proceedings, my ex-wife's lawyer tried to make a case in front of the judge that I should cover all the court and legal fees. However, I was able to make a strong argument against this. I pointed out that many of the delays in the process were due to mistakes on their end, not mine. There were so many errors in the paperwork they sent me that it took longer to get everything sorted out. Because of this, the judge didn't make me pay those fees. After we got divorced, my ex-wife moved in with the man she left me for. It turns out he's not a good guy at all and has been abusive. Once I changed all my banking passwords, she suddenly lost access to my money. She quickly realized just how much she relied on my income to support her lifestyle, which was a bit of a shock to her. To make matters worse, she had been managing the payments for the house we were living in, which actually belonged to her uncle. Because she wasn't making the payments, the house almost got taken away by the bank. Her uncle came to me, desperate for help. He told me that if I wanted to stay in the house, I'd need to cover the back payments she missed, which added up to about $15,000 for 6 months of unpaid mortgage. I didn't have that kind of money just lying around, so I suggested buying the house from him instead. To my surprise, he agreed, and now I own the house that used to belong to my ex-wife's grandmother. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. I've received a promotion at work, which came with a nice pay increase. I'm still living in the same house, working on making improvements whenever I can afford to. I haven't found a new girlfriend, but through online dating, I've been meeting new people and enjoying my single life. Looking back, it's almost funny how my ex-wife left a stable situation for someone who turned out to be far from what she expected, and her actions nearly caused her uncle to lose his property. In a way, her decision to divorce me ended up being a huge favor to me, even if it didn't seem like it at the time. She might try to come back to you when she realizes the grass isn't greener on the other side. But remember, don't let her tears sway you, and make sure you never take her back. Now for my update, November 3rd is coming up, marking 1 year since my divorce was finalized. In this past year, I've taken significant steps to improve myself. I started seeing a therapist who encouraged me to focus on personal growth, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I've changed my diet and exercise routine, which led me to lose over 50 pounds. Soccer has always been a passion of mine, so I got back into playing regularly and even started coaching my kids' youth soccer team. On top of that, I rediscovered my love for reading, setting a goal to read a new book every week. My efforts have paid off at work too. I received a big raise and a promotion, which has made it much easier for me to take care of myself and my child. Despite all these positive changes, my ex-wife suddenly wants to be part of our lives again. Her latest relationship, with a man she thought was her savior from our terrible marriage, has turned violent. He's been abusive, and one recent episode was so severe it landed her in the hospital. Our child was with her at the time and had to call for an ambulance. Despite the evidence, my ex-wife refuses to press charges or admit what happened, though the bruises clearly tell the story. Just last night, I attended a family party. This side of the family and I have always gotten along well, and they invited me over. I was polite to my ex-wife but kept my distance, choosing not to engage in conversation with her. However, her family seems to have convinced her that we're still in love, which couldn't be further from the truth. My ex-wife might have been okay with how things were in our marriage, but I certainly wasn't happy at all. I became so withdrawn and unresponsive, almost like I was just there as another source of money for her. In the last 2 years we were together, she emotionally and financially took advantage of me. During our final year as a married couple, she was cheating on me with another guy. Every time I tried to talk to her about her affair, she denied everything and would run off to his place. When I finally caught her red-handed, she blamed me, saying it was because I wasn't supportive enough. But the truth was, I was giving her all my earnings after paying our bills. I hadn't even bought myself new clothes or shoes for years because of how tight money was. Then, out of the blue, she turned up at one of the soccer games. After the game, she asked me if I was ready to move back in with her. I was totally taken aback and asked her why on earth I would do something like that. She launched into this whole story about how we're still in love, we have a kid together, and how it would be better for our child if we raised them together. I had to tell her straight that I don't have any love or trust left for her at all. I even reminded her that she still owes me over $1,100 for fixing her car. Her response? She said she'd pay me back if we moved in together. That's when I couldn't hold back and just burst out laughing, so hard that I doubled over. Seeing me laugh, she started crying, which honestly just made me laugh even harder. Maybe it wasn't the kindest reaction, but after everything I've been through and all the effort I've put into bettering myself, the idea of going back to her, to the very person who caused me so much pain, just seemed like the worst possible decision. My child still holds a lot of affection for his mother, and I would never do anything to damage their relationship. I believe if there's any turning away to be done, she'll manage that on her own with her actions. The idea that she suggested we move back in together took me by surprise. She didn't offer any apologies or show any signs of regret for her past actions. Instead, she just boldly proposed we start living together again, acting as if she's bringing something valuable to the table. This kind of thinking on her part is pretty out there. And then there's our child, who had to go through the distressing experience of seeing his mom in a harmful situation. That's something that could really affect him deeply. I think it's important to try and secure full custody to protect him from being in such a harmful environment again. Moving on to my latest news, I've met someone really special. I understand that healing from all these events will take time for everyone involved, but I'm hopeful that we can all find our own versions of happiness, whatever decisions we make about our relationships. This past year has been a roller coaster for me. I celebrated the first anniversary of my divorce on November 3rd. Since then, I've been focusing on self-improvement through therapy, and I've been dating. I've met some fantastic women and admittedly, a few that weren't a great match for me. Just this Monday, my ex-wife came across a Facebook post from my girlfriend, Cher. Cher had shared some photos from a wonderful trip we took together over the weekend. We indulged in delicious food, enjoyed a few drinks, and generally had an incredible time, capturing lots of fun moments in photos. I'm not usually one to document my dates with pictures, but I really like Cher. So, when she asked if she could post our trip pictures and tag me, I was happy to agree. I was pretty sure sharing those photos would stir up some drama, but the reaction I received from my ex-wife and her family was astonishingly intense. Let me give you a bit more background to paint the whole picture. My ex-wife was unfaithful for over a year before we officially ended our marriage. She was seeing someone else even before we separated and moved in with her boyfriend while our divorce was still being processed. Now, we've been divorced for a year. Throughout our marriage, my ex-wife was both emotionally and financially manipulative and harmful towards me. Unfortunately, she continues to be abusive, but after I posted those photos, she dropped to an entirely new level of hostility and disrespect towards me. On Monday, she twisted the story to make it look like I was the one who had been unfaithful. She complained about how shameful it was for me to humiliate her by sharing pictures on social media, where I'm seen with other women. She accused me of being selfish and insensitive for not considering her feelings, and labeled me a coward for hiding that I'm seeing other people. She even claimed that by my actions, I've destroyed any hope of us ever getting back together, saying that any love she still had for me was killed off by what she called my cheating ways. The whole time she was making these accusations, she was on the phone, shouting and berating me. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but find the irony of her claims hilarious. I just laughed as she spent a good 30 minutes ranting about how I supposedly ruined our relationship and betrayed her, despite her being the one who cheated and was abusive throughout our relationship. When my ex-wife asked me about my fidelity during our marriage, I was clear with her. I had been completely faithful and loyal until our relationship officially ended. She didn't stop there, though. She went on to question me about my dating life since our divorce. That made me laugh even more, and I firmly told her that my personal life is no longer her concern since we're not together anymore. I pointed out to her that just as I don't meddle in her affairs, she has no right to intrude into mine. Despite my attempt to set this boundary, she bombarded me with a series of really hurtful and offensive text messages, attacking me and my current girlfriend, Cher. She even threatened to send Cher direct messages to tell her all sorts of negative things about being married to me. I told her she was welcome to try if she thought it would make any difference. Then my ex-wife mentioned wanting to meet Cher in person to see what kind of woman she is, suggesting that Cher must be a terrible person for supposedly breaking up a happy marriage. That's when I really had to question her grasp on reality. I reminded her bluntly that our marriage had ended over a year ago, and it was she who had an affair, left me for someone else, and filed for divorce. At this point, my ex-wife broke down crying. Through her tears, she confessed that she had been holding on to hope that we might somehow reconcile. She complained that it was unfair I had moved on and found someone else to spend time with, insisting that I should be focusing on doing things with her and our child, as if we were still a family. This whole conversation highlighted just how disconnected from reality my ex-wife had become, seemingly unable to accept the consequences of her own actions that led to the end of our marriage. My ex-wife recently confessed to me that she's unhappy in her current relationship with her boyfriend, mentioning that he doesn't treat her well. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by this revelation, because I had suspected as much for a while. However, hearing about her problems doesn't bring me any satisfaction. In fact, I really don't have any feelings for her anymore, and I have no desire to get back together with her. I'd prefer it if we didn't have to interact at all. But on a brighter note, my life is going really well right now. I've found happiness with my girlfriend, Cher. She brings so much joy into my life, and I always look forward to spending time with her. She's the last person I talk to before I go to sleep, and the first one I reach out to when I wake up. We're even planning another trip together soon. I'm aware that sharing photos of our trip might trigger a negative reaction from my ex-wife, but to me, living my life happily is worth any backlash. It's clear to me now that my ex-wife has always tried to make me out to be the bad guy, which is a classic narcissistic behavior. To those giving me advice, you're right. I should keep our interactions strictly about our child and avoid getting dragged into long, pointless conversations with her. And yes, I'm prepared for the possibility that she might try to spread lies about me, but I'm focusing on moving forward positively. Now, for a bit of a reflection 2 years on, the day everything changed for me was March 21st, 2022. That late night in 2021, I discovered not just one affair, but evidence of another, and possibly more, after 23 years of marriage, 2 biological children, and a stepchild. I spent a year trying to mend our relationship, but her ongoing issues with mental health, PTSD, substance abuse, and secretive behavior, like finding a second phone she was using, made it impossible to continue trying to reconcile. The final straw in my marriage came when she fired a gun into my side of the bed. That terrifying moment made me decide to end things once and for all. I filed for divorce in April, and by June, it was all over. The relief I felt was enormous. It was like I had been given a second chance at life. Up until that point, I hadn't fully grasped just how much stress and fear I had been living with. Looking back, I can see all the mistakes I made. After discovering her betrayal, I reacted all wrong. Instead of taking time to process everything, I rushed into trying to fix our relationship without addressing the underlying issues. We didn't seek therapy immediately, which was a huge oversight. By the time we did start therapy, it was already too late to make any difference. Our children had already lost all respect for their mother, and I was left feeling a mix of devastation, humiliation, anger, and grief. I was barely getting through the days, feeling like a zombie. In April of last year, I was overwhelmed by the number of people who reached out to offer their support after my ex-wife launched a smear campaign against me on social media. She accused me of everything under the sun, from abuse and rape to stealing a significant amount of money. Of course, she conveniently left out her own actions. I responded by posting a short public service announcement to clear my name, stating that none of the accusations were true. I understood if some people felt they needed to distance themselves from me, but I also hoped others would be willing to give me the chance to prove my innocence. Meanwhile, I focused on improving myself. I got in shape, dropping from 250 pounds to 185. I also made a significant career move, taking on a new role that came with a promotion. I had plans to enjoy a summer of revenge by casually dating through phone apps. During this time, an old high school classmate reached out to me. She lived far away and was going through a similar breakup, having discovered her partner's betrayal about 6 months after mine. We started checking in with each other regularly, offering support and understanding. When I had to travel to Knoxville for work, we found ourselves texting one night, catching up and sharing our experiences. I had been looking forward to experiencing some live music during my stay, talking up how exciting the 2 nights ahead of me were going to be. But contrary to what I initially thought, my summer didn't turn out to be filled with a series of casual flings, as I had playfully imagined. Instead, what unfolded was a summer filled with beach outings, live music, tours of distilleries, since she really enjoys whiskey, and simply having a great time, the likes of which I hadn't experienced in years. As summer transitioned into fall, our relationship deepened. We got to meet each other's families, spent Thanksgiving with her family, celebrated Christmas together, and even took a trip to Las Vegas to enjoy a long weekend over the Super Bowl. All these experiences brought us closer. Now, as I celebrate my 52nd birthday, I find myself genuinely happy. The last couple of birthdays were pretty rough, but this one feels special and exciting because she's on her way to move in with me. She's a nurse and managed to quickly find a job in my city here in the South. She's decided to keep her own house and let her daughter rent it out. If a friend were in my situation, I might have cautioned them that it's too much too soon. But for us, it just feels like the right move. We're not rushing into marriage or anything like that. We're just two people who are tired of trying to match our schedules and missing out on time together. We're moving in together to see if our relationship is as strong as we believe it to be. On this forum, a lot of people talk about karma or getting revenge on their exes. In my case, my ex still sends me drunk texts, often saying she wishes we were still together. It's a mix of apologies and blaming me for our breakup. Half the time she's sorry, and the other half she still thinks everything was my fault. But the truth is, I'm much happier now without her. I'm less stressed, and I've met someone incredible. She's amazing, way more than I ever expected to be with, and she's really into me, even though I sometimes worry it's too good to be true. So, in a way, I feel like I've already gotten the best kind of revenge by just living my life well. My message to you all is that even though what happened to you because of your spouse or partner was devastating, it's possible to move past it and find happiness again. Sometimes, they don't realize the good thing they had until it's gone. But once you're on the other side, you might see that you're actually better off. I shared my story to inspire you not to give up no matter how tough things get. It's never too late to make a fresh start. Remember to put yourself first and have faith in your ability to recover and thrive. Things really can improve. I managed to start anew at 50, proving it's possible at any age. And that wraps up today's update. If you're following along, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future stories. Until next time, goodbye. I, 47 male. I'm getting married to my beautiful girlfriend. 34 female of 4.5 years in less than a week. This is my second engagement. 11 years ago, I almost got married to my ex-girlfriend, 38 female. She was my high school sweetheart, and we've been together for almost 10 years. So naturally, we even lived together for 5 years. So naturally, I was ready to get married. It seems like I was not the only one shocked. She appeared to be as well. My family held a positive view of my ex, and they were excited when I shared the news of our engagement. However, things took an unexpected turn just one day before the wedding when my ex ended up having a romantic encounter with my 34-year-old brother. Adding to the shock, my ex had suggested that I spend the night before the wedding at a hotel, believing it was necessary to stay separately to avoid bad luck. And I did what she asked of me. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'd forgotten my shoes back home and had to go back for them a few hours after I'd reached the hotel. When I went back home, I was surprised to see that the lights were out in the living room since my ex hated turning out the lights while leaving a room and couldn't believe that she'd remembered. I went in and headed straight to the bedroom since that's where I kept the shoebox, because that's how special it was to me. But when I opened the door to my room, I was greeted with the worst thing I'd ever seen. My ex was lying in bed with my little brother and was so caught up in their act that they barely even noticed that I'd entered the room. It took only a few seconds for them to notice me, but I was completely frozen, unsure of how to react. My world crumbled around me, and as soon as I comprehended what I had just witnessed, I instinctively made a run for it. Despite my ex calling after me, I drove back to the hotel in a state of hyperventilation and panic, outright refusing to accept what I had seen. I was supposed to get married the next day, so this was just insane. It took me a while to compose myself once I got to my room, and when I finally managed to calm down, I ended up sobbing for at least an hour. Thankfully, I hadn't told my ex which hotel I was in, so she couldn't get to me and could only text me, which is what she did. Following the incident, she bombarded me with apology texts, attempting to convince me that it was a one-time occurrence. However, I remained highly skeptical of her explanation. She also mentioned feeling overwhelmed by the upcoming wedding, claiming she needed to blow off some steam. According to her, my brother had always been there for her, leaving her unsure of whom else to turn to in that moment. I could hardly believe that she was even trying to explain herself after what I'd seen and blocked her immediately. I also blocked my brother since I wasn't interested in any of their bullcrap. Apologies. It took me a while, but I managed to pull myself together and canceled all the arrangements for the wedding. First and foremost, because no matter how much money I lost, I was going to get out of this mess. My ex had just wasted 10 years of my life, so I didn't mind wasting a few $1,000s as long as it meant that I wouldn't have to be with her anymore. The next thing that I did was I called my parents up and told them what had happened. They were really confused about whether they should be consoling me or cutting my brother off. I allowed them some time to contemplate the situation. By then, it was late in the evening, so I ordered dinner for myself and then cried myself to sleep. Following that day, I encountered my ex only twice. The first time was when she returned home to gather her belongings and leave. The second time occurred a couple of years later at a mutual friend's party, where she attempted to engage in conversation with me. But I left as soon as I spotted her coming my way. My brother and I also haven't spoken since then, because my parents have cut him off for what he did to me. Last I heard, he was working in Europe and hasn't come back here for 3 years now. Anyway, that was all in the past, and I've managed to move on from that horrible episode. I'm in a better place now and definitely was a better woman, whom I trust wholeheartedly. It was all going well until a few days back, exactly 1 week before my wedding. My ex reached out to me. I don't know how she found out about me or my wedding, but she contacted me from a new Facebook account. Since I'd blocked her original account first, and sent me a ton of messages about how devastated she was to hear that I was getting married again. It struck me as odd that she used the term again, considering that, despite the near marriage, we were never officially married. Nevertheless, the situation felt like a total deja vu. The way she pleaded for me to take her back, despite her actions, and claimed that I was the only man she'd ever loved, had a profound impact on me. And I even told my fiancé about it immediately. Part of me was so perturbed by this that I wanted to give her a piece of my mind for bothering me before my wedding. But another more unforgiving part of me really wanted revenge. I knew that I'd done the right thing all those years back, and had dealt with the situation like an adult. However, this time around, I harbored a strong desire to inflict emotional pain on her to the extent that she wouldn't even consider reaching out to me again. When I confided in my fiancé about these feelings, she fully supported the idea. Despite her own experiences of being cheated on in the past, acknowledging that our relationship wasn't a 10-year one, it still left a painful impact. So she knew how I felt. So this time, instead of just letting it go, we came up with a plan to get revenge, and make sure that my ex went through the same heartache that she put me through. This is why a couple of hours after I received her text, I decided to text her back, saying that I was finally ready to talk to her. She expressed her readiness to come to my place immediately, but I suggested she get a room in a nearby hotel. I promised to meet her there the next day to avoid raising suspicions with my fiancé. Throughout this conversation, my fiancé was right beside me, and surprisingly, she agreed to the plan, and so the next day I went to her hotel. At the time we agreed upon, she seemed overjoyed to see me and was actually crying happy tears, but she'd be crying real tears in a couple of minutes. She sat me down and started explaining how she'd been so sorry about what had happened for these past 12 years. I wanted to make it up to me, but didn't know how to get through to me until she heard from a friend that I was getting married again. She believed that sending one last text was crucial, fearing she would lose me forever if she didn't. I feigned interest, attentively listening and holding her hands while she spoke. All the while, I anxiously awaited my fiancé's arrival. After almost 20 minutes, a knock on the door signaled her presence, prompting me to rush and open it. My fiancé answered, followed by all of our groomsmen and bridesmaids wearing masks of my brother's face. They'd carried a cake in as well, and even that had my brother's face smiling up at us. My ex was horrified and couldn't even come up with words to say anything. We yelled surprise eyes while she looked on with a shocked expression on her face, because I'm sure nobody would have ever seen this coming. We've managed to convince the hotel staff that we were surprising her, and it was relatively easy, since she'd already informed them to let in any guest who wanted to visit her, which she'd meant just for me. But I had other plans. After she was able to process what was happening, she started sobbing and mumbling some incoherent gibberish while crying. I wasn't inclined to let her off the hook so easily. Messaging me just a week before my wedding, after cheating on me with my own brother the day before we were supposed to get married, was audacious. Now, she had to confront the consequences of her actions. I made it clear that this was what she deserved, and any chance of reconciliation, if ever, would only be considered after her betrayal. Then she was dead wrong. She had no business texting me after what she'd put me through, and I was glad that she was hurt by what I'd done because she'd brought it upon herself. I was really cold and curt while saying all of this, but she continued to sob and said that if I didn't want her back, then I should have just ignored and blocked her instead of going out of my way to humiliate her like this. But I didn't feel sorry for her in the slightest. Not then, not now. I told her never to speak to me again, and then left her crying by herself in the hotel room. Now I'm supposed to get married in 2 days, but some of my fiancé's friends want me to apologize to my ex since they think that the way I told her off that day was harsh. Despite her actions, some may argue that she didn't deserve this. However, my groomsmen, who have known me since middle school, don't share this sentiment. They are fully aware of the battles I faced with depression and fighting for my life in the years following my breakup with my ex due to the circumstances. They understand the depth of my love for her and what she meant to me, so they didn't judge or mind what I had done. My fiancé's friends had probably been expecting some high school drama that they could gossip about later, but this was too raw and real for them. My fiancé is on my side and doesn't think I should apologize, but her friends are refusing to be part of the wedding. If I don't do that now, I'm really torn up because on one hand, I don't want my fans to be upset on our wedding day. After all, she really values her friends, but I also don't think I owe my ex any apology at all. She could have just stayed out of my life and this never would have happened, but she just didn't want to see me happy. In fact, she still tried to play the victim here and keep sending texts from spam accounts about how I broke her heart, and that this will definitely come back to me someday. I don't particularly care for this brand of emotional manipulation, not from my ex, and most certainly not from my fiancé's bridesmaids. Now I know that she's never going to tell me to apologize just for her sake, but I sort of feel obliged to at this point, and that's why I'm here. I'm running out of time, and I need to decide what I'm going to do right now. 80 for humiliating my cheating ex after she tried to get back with me just a week before my wedding. Update 1. So the response on this has been pretty diverse to say the least. There's just 1 day to go until the wedding, and I decided to speak to my fiancé before I actually do anything. Like most people have suggested, I talked to her about how I've been feeling, and as soon as I told her, she said that I absolutely didn't have to apologize to my ex just because her bridesmaids fought so, and if that offended them, then they could skip her wedding. She shared that her bridesmaids were unaware of the details, and many of them believed that I had overreacted, even after she explained that my ex and I had been together for a decade, and she had cheated on me with my brother. An act perceived as incomprehensibly cruel and unforgivable. Despite the severity of the situation, they remained unconvinced, still thinking I was being unreasonable and owed her an apology, so she gave up trying to explain my side of things to them and even told them that they didn't have to attend our wedding if they didn't feel like it. She hasn't spoken to her friends in one whole day, and it seems really unlikely that they'll be attending. One of them even paid her back for the cost of the bridesmaid dress that she'd bought them all, and she thinks that most of them are going to skip. She's putting up a strong front for my sake, but I know she's hurting since these women have been her friends since high school. My fiance says she doesn't care, but I know she does deep down. So I've decided to talk to her friends and try to convince them myself. As for my ex, she has become quite a nuisance. Just a few hours ago, she somehow managed to call me and spent a whole 15 minutes trying to argue. She was insistent on convincing me that I was still in love with her, but just too proud to admit it. Why did she think so? Well, according to her, I went to such great lengths only to humiliate her. So it's obviously meant that I still did have feelings for her deep down. Yeah, she's right. But those feelings are of hate and disgust. For whatever reason, she believes. I just wanted to see her one last time, which is why I'd held her hands while she was talking. But honestly, that was just a shocker. Even more, I literally laughed in her face while talking to her, hoping that she'd get the hint. But she kept on blabbering about how we were soulmates and that I needed to call off the wedding before I made a huge mistake. Truly, the sole reason I'm considering any of this is to prevent her from making any regrettable decisions. I've been attempting to contact her parents to facilitate her removal, but so far, I haven't succeeded in reaching them. Consequently, I'm patiently waiting for their response. Once they step in, I'll finally be able to part ways with her for good. Don't get me wrong, I still hate her, but I also don't want her to hurt herself. I'm not that inhuman. Update 2. Hey guys! So we're officially married now. It's been a couple of days since the ceremony, and I still can't believe it. She's now my wife. I'm thrilled. But unfortunately, there's still sad news. Her friends ended up not showing up to the wedding, despite my attempts to get them to come. I personally called each one of them up to explain why I'd done what I'd done and why I didn't want to apologize. But they didn't care much for it. Even when I asked them to attend just for my wife's sake, they weren't too hot on it. And that just seemed bizarre to me because I surely attend a friend's wedding, even if I didn't particularly like the person they were getting married to. I only learned the real reason yesterday when my wife finally confessed that she'd had a feeling her friends wouldn't attend. Whether or not I apologized simply because of the fact that she'd refused to do what they'd asked of her and had disagreed with them. They didn't like that one bit and believed that they were all one unit, so they always needed to have a united front. These friends from high school had been part of her life for a long time, and despite managing to keep the friendship intact over the years due to a lack of significant disagreements, this was the first time their bond faced a serious test. In this instance, she chose me over her friends, a decision that didn't sit well with them. She confessed to feeling a bit upset about the situation, but was too embarrassed to admit it, considering the whole situation to be juvenile. I didn't mind, though, since at least now I was sure that this wasn't really my fault, and her friends were just self-centered. My wife even said that part of her was glad that they'd refused to attend, because she could finally stop trying to fit in all the damn time and could live life on her own terms without constantly having to seek her friends' approval. So that was good for us, I suppose. Also, my ex's parents finally responded to me on the evening before my wedding. I explained to them hurriedly what their daughter had tried to do and how they needed to get to the hotel she'd been staying in and take her back with them for her own safety because she was being really psychotic and delusional. I didn't feel it was appropriate for her to be left alone. It turns out they were on a hiking trip without network access. However, upon their return, they assured me that they would come to take her back as soon as possible and even expressed gratitude for informing them. I haven't received any updates since then, but I presume they successfully brought her back home. Update 3. Hi guys. It's been a week since my wedding, and unfortunately it's been nothing but drama so far. As I mentioned, my girlfriend or her parents hadn't been in touch with me since the last time I spoke to her parents. I'd assumed that they'd take her home, but apparently not. 2 nights ago, there was a knock at our door, and since it was really late, my wife and I had no idea who it could be, because we weren't expecting anyone. I made the mistake of opening the door before looking through the cameras, and when I opened up, my ex pushed past me and walked in with her bags. My wife was sitting on the couch and literally sprang to her feet as soon as my ex walked in. I was about to ask her what she was doing in my house, but before I could say anything, she told me that she was here to stay. She told me that her parents had come to bring her home a few days back, but she had refused to go since she knew that I would take her back soon. My wife and I were stunned and had no idea how to react because of how crazy all this seemed. She told me that her parents had tried to force it to go back with them, but she'd had a huge fight with them and ended up staying at the hotel. Now, she was running out of money and made the decision to move to my place. Her reasoning was that spending enough time with her again might trigger memories of the past and lead me to fall back in love with her. I was utterly perplexed and had no idea how to react due to the sheer strangeness of the situation. My wife tried to speak to her, but she ignored her presence altogether and continued speaking to me, demanding that I let her live with us. I told Rose gently, as I could, that I was a married man now, and she couldn't just show up here to live with me, but she said that she didn't accept the wedding, so in her eyes, I was still unmarried. I couldn't believe that this was happening, but neither did I have the heart to kick her out, because honestly, she seemed seriously unstable, and it appeared to me that she needed help. So I sat her down and told her to wait in the living room while I went to the bedroom with my wife to discuss what we should do next. Thankfully, my wife was also quite sympathetic and knew there was something seriously off about how my ex was behaving. She needed serious professional help, and we realized it. I tried to get through to her parents, but they didn't accept my calls and texts back, saying that they couldn't force to come back anymore, and she was clearly too psychotic to live with them. Now, she was on her own. It was evident that her parents were embarrassed by her, and it was disheartening to witness how they were prepared to abandon their own daughter once they realized she was facing difficulties with no other options left. In response, I called my own parents, and they arrived within half an hour. My ex had fallen asleep on the couch in the meantime, which turned out to be fortunate. Upon my parents' arrival, we decided to take her to a therapist as soon as possible, as her recent actions left us uncertain about what she might be capable of at this point. My wife and I let her stay that night because honestly, neither of us could bring ourselves to hate her anymore because of how sad the whole situation was. Clearly, something had snapped in her mind, and she needed to be treated for it at the earliest. And the poor woman didn't even have her parents to count on anymore. My parents and I took her to the hospital the next day, and she was still rambling about how she was glad that I was finally coming around and had even started planning our wedding. We brought her to a mental health professional, but she adamantly refused, insisting that she felt perfectly fine. Despite numerous struggles and complications, the doctors were eventually able to calm her down with medication, including drugs whose names I don't recall. Following the treatment, she appeared considerably more composed. A couple of hours later, she finally expressed the desire to return home. I brought her home, and we let her rest in the room while my family and I sat in the living room thinking about what to do next. My wife and I were really relieved when she said that she wanted to go home now and even helped her pack the stuff in the trunk of our car. We drove our home together. She remained silent throughout the ordeal, leaving us at a loss for words in such a challenging situation. Upon returning home, she apologized to both of us for the trouble she had caused and expressed her shame over everything that had transpired. My wife and I felt a sense of awkwardness throughout the interaction, but we reassured her that it was okay and advised her to prioritize self-care before heading back home. I didn't know if it would help or not, but I did contact my ex's mother and fill her in on everything that had happened. And I guess that finally made them realize the gravity of the situation. She told me that she's moved in with her daughter and said that she'll keep us updated. And despite whatever has happened so far, my wife and I truly wish that she gets better. I'm a 27-year-old male with a twin sister. Growing up, my twin sister and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. My parents genuinely seemed convinced for some reason that my sister was destined for greatness while I was the so-called black sheep, just because I was more interested in playing sports than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and bruised. Growing up, I felt pretty low about myself for a long time. When I was a kid, my sister always had these huge, fancy parties on our birthdays, and I felt like I was just there, not really noticed. She'd have sleepovers with her pals, giggling and having fun, and I was sometimes pulled into playing tea party games I didn't really want to, But you know what? Secretly, I kind of enjoyed those tea parties too. It felt like my grandma was the only one who really cared about me and my family. Whenever she visited, she made sure to bring my favorite chocolates and sometimes even gave me some money to spoil myself. But things started changing. The attention my twin sister got turned into a sort of emotional bullying towards me. My parents started making fun of my grades and putting down my dreams. It felt as though no matter how much I tried, I could never meet their expectations. Although I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities as they wanted me to concentrate only on studies, just like my sister. It was frustrating, and I felt helpless as a child. I remember this one incident where I had a particularly heated argument with my parents about my future. When I started applying for college because they didn't want to pay for me while they had set aside money for our college funds, they wanted to use most of the funds on my sister's education. They believed her decision to attend an expensive school would help her excel better. They wanted me to attend a community college instead of a decent college of my choice. My grades were actually pretty good, but my parents didn't seem to want to invest much in me. When my grandmother learned about this, it led to a big fight between her and my parents. She even warned my mom that she'd be cut out of her will if they didn't agree to send me to a good college, just like they did for my sister. After a few days of arguing, they finally gave in. I will always be thankful to my grandmother because of this. It was when I went away to college that I first experienced what freedom felt like for the first time. No one was watching over my shoulders. No one was comparing my grades, and no one was trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had sustained over the years due to my family, I concentrated on putting it all behind me and enjoying this college experience as much as I could. During this time, I discovered my knack for logo and graphic design. I decided to start learning Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator by watching YouTube videos so I could make some side money. I then reached out to local businesses in my area to see if they needed a logo designer and slowly started building a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked for a penny from my parents. When I graduated from college, instead of getting a corporate job, I realized I could turn my side hustle into a legitimate business, as I already had clients who were ready to keep me on retainers. After years of being loyal to them, I made the decision to move into an apartment with roommates, and life was looking up. Meanwhile, my sister was excelling and getting ready for higher studies in biology, at least according to what my parents told me. Our contact dwindled over the years, especially after we went to different colleges. Over the years, my parents never really made any effort to contact me, hence I stopped trying as well. After a while, I was financially independent, now and had been going to therapy for years. So I have started to heal from my childhood wounds slowly. As a graphic designer, I know the custom of reviews are super important. Usually, I ask my clients if they like my work to write a review on Google or Facebook so that it helps more people find out about my business. Recently, one of my high-end clients was really happy with my work, so he posted a long message on Facebook, appreciating my professionalism and work ethic. I was really surprised by this sweet gesture, and I started getting messages from strangers who are interested in my work. His post was seen by my entire family and close friends as he had tagged me, so some of them began leaving comments under the posts, congratulating me for doing well. I thought things were finally looking up for me, but that's when everything took a turn for the worse. Suddenly, my parents called me out of nowhere last week, requesting a meeting with me. All these years, they had never shown any interest in my life or even visited me in college, so I was pretty taken aback. I pondered over it for days and even talked with my therapist regarding this. I imagine maybe they had realized the abuse I'd gone through as a child and wanted to offer an apology after all these years. I decided to meet them over lunch in a public place just in case things didn't go well, and I needed a quick exit. On the day I met them, my father immediately Atlee walked in to hug me, but my mother, as usual, maintained her distance and gave a quick smile. We sat down, gave our orders, and exchanged some small talk. I was already feeling anxious and wanted them to just get to the point, so I asked why they reached out to me, suddenly, after all these years. It was then that my mother dropped a bombshell. My sister, the golden child of the family, was 2 months pregnant, and they had just found out. The news caught me off guard, and I almost choked on my cocktail. Turns out my sister had a one-night fling with a guy at a party, and now she was expecting a baby. She had only just found out. And because she had never asked for his name, she could not locate the father. As a result, she planned to move back in with our parents who would support her in taking care of the baby, while she attempted to continue her studies from home. The reason my parents contacted me, as they put it, was because they wanted my help financially. They claimed I would soon be an uncle, and they expected me to pitch in to caring for my sister's upcoming child. My face burned with anger as their words sank in. After a lifetime of feeling like an afterthought, they only reached out to me for my assistance because of my pregnant sister. I immediately signaled the server requesting the bill, paid it, and abruptly left the restaurant. My mother chased after me, urging me to be a good son and insisting the baby needed a good role model. I reached home and turned off my phone as I kept getting a lot of calls and messages from my parents. After a night's sleep, when I finally switched my phone back on the next day, I found not only missed calls and messages from my mother, but also a lengthy text from my sister. In her message, she made demands, insisting that I take care of her child and be a responsible uncle. She told me how I was doing well in my life and earning good money now, so I shouldn't be selfish, and could afford to send her a couple of $100s every month to help her take care of the baby. I didn't even bother to reply to her. I cut her call. I just couldn't sleep that night and stayed up in bed for hours, wide awake as this whole situation kept bothering me. The condescending tone of my parents, their abuses over the years, and my sister's entitlement were all just too much, and I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. This is when I decided to make a Facebook post from my personal ID regarding my situation. I thought only my family and close friends on Facebook would read this, and I just wanted the truth to be out. I wrote down everything right down to how unworthy my parents had made me feel over the years and had only reached out when they needed financial assistance. After I posted it, I shut down my laptop and went to sleep. When I woke up the following day, I discovered that the post had gone viral in a matter of hours. There were people from my friend list, relatives, and even complete strangers who had commented their support under my posts, and some had even shared it. It seemed like a lot of people understood the abuse and the message behind the post resonated with them. There were hundreds of comments from people sharing their own similar stories about family abuses, which was heartbreaking to read. My parents must have received angry calls from some of my relatives because my mother called me quite upset and asked me to delete the post immediately. She explained how she had always thought I wouldn't amount to anything and had doubted my career success, which is why she hadn't reached out to me earlier. However, after seeing the positive review from my client, she realized my business was thriving, and that's when she got in touch to ask for help regarding my sister. She kept insisting on how important it is for us to protect the family's reputation. My dad reacted a bit differently. He sent an apology via text but also wanted me to remove the post so that we could handle the situation privately and prevent any further damage to the family's reputation. My parents seemed to have been caught off guard by this sudden public revelation of our dysfunctional family dynamics. Throughout my life, my family consistently favored my sister and convinced me that I could never achieve success in my career. However, after I wrote the post on Facebook calling them out, they suddenly wanted to play family with me despite my parents' multiple pleas to delete the posts. I chose to leave the post as it was to prove them all wrong, so now I can have the last laugh. This decision has now caused a rift within the family. While my grandmother and some other family members have reached out to me and openly provided their support, a few others, especially from my dad's side, are urging me to keep the family matters within the family. So I stay for calling out my parents on Facebook, refusing to take the post down, and finally getting the last laugh after all these years. Update 1. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I have received from everyone has been overwhelming. It's heartening to know that I'm not alone during this time. We come from a close-knit neighborhood, so now everybody knows our business. After I posted on Facebook, and it seems that my post has ignited conversations within our social circle. My parents have received criticism, not only from relatives, but also from their close friends and neighbors, who were previously unaware of the extent of favoritism and emotional abuse. I found out from my relatives the reason why my family reached out to me out of the blue. You see, my parents are currently enjoying their retirement, and over the years they have used up most of their savings to clear their debts and explore the world. My sister has never had a job as my parents wanted her to concentrate only on studies, which meant she didn't have any savings. Now with the arrival of the baby, they realized they needed financial support when they came across the Facebook review that my client had written and tagged me. They realized that my business was actually doing good, and I was earning more than they had imagined, and they were shocked that I had proved them all wrong and established myself. But instead of wishing me well, they saw this as an opportunity to ask for financial help. However, when I declined and decided to publicly address the issue on Facebook, they had no alternative but to back down. My sister had called me a few days ago after I wrote the post, and as I had expected, she sounded beyond enraged. Apparently, our parents are now refusing to take care of her and the baby financially, as they have realized not to coddle her any longer and want her to be responsible for her own actions. They are okay with my sister moving in as long as she drops her plans for higher studies for now and starts looking for a job with her biology degree. They also want her to contact the father through prenatal paternity testing so she can inform him about the pregnancy. After hearing what my parents had to say, my sister, who had never been asked previously to take any kind of responsibility, her entire life was stumped. She thought she could call and direct her anger out on me, but this time I didn't keep quiet and decided to stand up for myself. I told her that she wasn't entitled to my hard-earned money just because she got pregnant from a one-night stand. I let her know that her lack of maturity wasn't really my problem. While I might have come across as harsh, I believe it marked a turning point in our conversation, making my sister realize she could no longer bully me. I ended the call by feeling a sense of satisfaction for speaking my mind. I then went ahead and sent a group text to my parents and sister, letting them know that I expected a formal apology for the abuse I had suffered. I wanted them to acknowledge the pain of mistreatment I had endured through all those years. The text was clear, stating that this apology was not a mere request. It was a requirement, a necessary step towards reconciliation. I emphasized that I had reached a point where I couldn't continue down the same path. The emotional toll of their actions was too heavy to bear any longer. If they refused to take this step, if they remained unwilling to admit their wrongdoings, it might be the end of the road for our relationship. Now I'm going to wait and see how they react. The ball is in their court, and I hope that they make the right decision. Update 2. Although it's been a month now, I still continue to receive overwhelming support and responses from strangers every day. I feel much lighter since I spoke my truth and no longer have to worry about hiding my past from the world. First, I want to let everyone know that I am perfectly safe and not at all depressed as many seem to have assumed in the comments. What happened with my parents did affect me initially, but I have since learned to not hold it against them for my own mental well-being. As my therapist explained, I can't really control other people's actions. The only thing that I can control is my own emotions. Since my ultimatum, my parents have tried reaching out to me, alternating between apologies and attempts to downplay the situation. They are still struggling to come to terms with the public exposure of our family problems, and it's clear that their own reputation is of more concern to them than understanding my feelings. After some contemplation, I made the decision to remove the Facebook post from my page, even though I had planned to keep it up forever. I realized that the post had accomplished precisely what I had hoped for, a public declaration calling out my parents for their years of abuse. My mother continues to believe that I could have done better and pointed these things out years earlier to them instead of letting it build up for so long and humiliating them publicly. This really frustrates me because as a teenager, I had always tried to talk to them about the situation, but they never listened to me. I have told her that if she feels that it was my fault for how she treated me, then I would like to take some space from her, as I didn't want this to affect my mental well-being anymore. As for my sister, she took a while, but eventually she surprised me with an apology. I don't know if it's the pregnancy hormones or a newfound realization that prompted her to reach out. In the lengthy text, she expressed that she could finally grasp the hardships I had to endure for being treated differently all those years, with all parents no longer providing financial support, and reminding her every day to take responsibility for her choices. She was experiencing the pressures I had felt growing up. She went on to explain that when she initially found out she was pregnant, it had stirred fear in her heart. The reality of having to handle this on her own hit her hard, and she realized she had made mistakes. Financial constraints loomed, and she acknowledged that she had wrongly directed her anger at me. She had learned from our parents that I was doing well in my career, and this made her think that she could ask me to contribute. But when I refused, it finally dawned on her that she would have to take responsibility for her own life. She told me that she was trying her best to find a job as she wanted to be a better example to her child. She apologized for asking me for money and assured me that she wouldn't be doing that ever again. She said that she wanted me to be a part of her baby's life as a positive male role model. Although I was a bit hesitant, I accepted the apology and we met over lunch. I was also happy to hear that she was looking for a job and I promised to help her out with her resume and cover letter. Since we started talking, my sister has been suggesting that we should talk to our parents about what I went through so they can understand my perspective better. But I don't think I'm ready yet to have a conversation with them. I finally pay the long overdue visit to my grandmother this weekend. She's been my rock, my pillar of support, always standing by my side through all these years. It was high time I expressed my heartfelt thanks for everything she has done for me. When I visited her, the nostalgia of my childhood rushed back. The familiar scent of her home-cooked meals, the creaky wooden floors, and the warm smile on her face were everything that I loved about her. We spent the entire afternoon talking about our lives, dreams, family. She told me that she was proud of me for standing up to my parents after all these years. She let me know that she had always pointed out my parents' unfair treatment towards me, but they had never acknowledged it. I told her that regardless of what my parents had put me through, I didn't blame her, and I wanted her to know that her kindness towards me had profoundly shaped my life. Now, coming to my graphic design business, which a lot of you have been curious about, it is doing exceptionally well, just as I had expected. Ever since my high-end client left a positive view of my work, my inbox has been flooded with inquiries. The satisfaction of knowing that clients appreciate my work is immeasurable. It's not just about the growth of my business, but the validation that I'm on the right path. Each new inquiry feels like a step closer to my goals, and it ignites a sense of passion and motivation to keep pushing forward. It's truly thrilling to see that all the efforts and hard work I've poured into this are finally paying off. Overall, I would say that this whole experience has been tough, but also incredibly liberating. For now, I plan on focusing on my work, personal growth, and spending my time with supportive friends and family members only. Although the path to healing is a long one, and I don't know where it will lead. I am thankful for the outpouring of support and understanding I have received here from Reddit community. While I have taken small steps towards mending relationships with my family, I am committed to prioritizing my own well-being first and ensuring that I'm not subject to emotional abuse or favoritism any longer. I will continue to share updates if there is anything interesting. Update. Three things have really turned out well, and a lot has changed in my life in the past 6 months. One of the most beautiful and life-changing experiences has been meeting my niece. My sister, who was pregnant, had given birth to the most adorable baby girl. She asked me to be her godfather, and I couldn't feel more honored by this special role. It's a new chapter in our family's story, and I'm looking forward to watching this little one grow up. In the past few months, my parents have put in sincere efforts to mend our relationship. It turns out that my grandmother and other relatives had a heart-to-heart talk with them, and it seems to have made a difference. My mother, in particular, has been trying hard to connect with me on a deeper level. She admitted to feeling both embarrassed and regretful that she couldn't be a better parent to me. Her genuine apology moved me to tears because these were the words I had longed to hear for so many years. I couldn't help but think about how different things might have been if she had spoken to me with these words during my upbringing, potentially sparing me years of suffering and pain. My dad, on the other hand, has suggested teaching me golf, emphasizing how learning the sport could potentially help me attract more high-end clients. Golf has turned out to be more challenging than I initially anticipated, and it certainly requires some dedicated practice to master. Nevertheless, I enjoy practicing with my dad every weekend and steadily improving with each session. My relationship with my sister has also evolved significantly over time. We now regularly meet for Saturday morning breakfast where we catch up to each other's lives. We also found out the father of her child and reaching out to him. Both of them agreed on a court-signed document to co-parent the child together. I have met the guy and he seems like a genuine fellow. Since becoming a mother, my sister has been working hard to change herself. She seems to have realized the importance of understanding and empathy, something that was long overdue. Moreover, she has secured a work-from-home opportunity that suits her well. She is diligently saving money to move out of our parents' house, and it's heartening to see her make positive strides in her life to help repair the long-standing resentments in our family and unspoken feelings. We have all planned to go for family therapy soon. It hasn't been an easy process, and at times our conversations seem to get emotionally charged. Hence, going for therapy will allow us to have more honest conversations professionally. I've seen considerable growth in my graphic design business thanks to the skills I have developed over the years. I absolutely love my job, and I am grateful for my career. I'm glad I found my true calling early in life, and there's nothing I find more satisfying than working on my designs and assisting my clients. I have managed to expand my client base to an international level after multiple positive reviews from my existing customer base. If everything goes well, I plan on hosting free workshops to help college students and aspiring graphic designers with my industry knowledge. I remember the struggles I faced when I was new to this field and no one to guide me, so I'm hoping my workshops can make a difference for these folks. I'm excited about the future and the opportunities it holds for both my career and my life. Life is good for me now, and I couldn't be more grateful for the love and support I received from everyone these past couple of months. I hope this can be my last update regarding this situation. A family wants me to join them for Christmas after disowning me over 8 years ago. Need advice on whether to go or not to go? After being disowned 8 years ago, my family has invited me, my wife, 27, female and daughter, one female for Christmas after getting conflicted advice from my friends. One of my buddies told me to post my dilemma here to see what random internet strangers would say. As the youngest among four siblings, I am a 26-year-old male. My mother is a 51-year-old female and my father is a 53-year-old male. Among my siblings, there are Michael, a 30-year-old male, Sarah, a 27-year-old female, and my twin brother Carl, who is 26 years old. It is important to note that my family is predominantly made up of athletes. Consequently, I have always felt like the odd one out while growing up. My dad was a star basketball player for Adidas in school. My mom played volleyball. Michael played soccer, Sarah played softball, and Carl was the star running back for the football team. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but rather, I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. My parents were always invested in my siblings and rarely ever attended my events, to the point where I basically had to beg for them to come to my tournaments between the ages of 14 to 16. While my parents only attended one of the approximately 20 tournaments I participated in, I never felt neglected by them. However, unlike my siblings, they were never emotionally present for me. As a teenager, it bothered me that whenever I tried to discuss this with them, they dismissed me as an attention seeker. Nevertheless, this is not the sole reason why I felt isolated within my own family. When I was 15, I began dating Amy, now 25, female, who was in the same grade as me at that time. After about 6 to 7 months of dating, I introduced her to my folks. Admissible things, and they really liked her. I know I was young, but I could see myself having a future with her. Almost 3 years later, one of Amy's ex-friends told me that she had been cheating on me for a couple of months at a time. I didn't know who the guy was, but after confronting her, she told me that it was my twin brother. She basically told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpasses that. Later that day, when I confronted Carl at home, I was so enraged that I sucker pushed him and knocked him out. Although I acknowledge my wrongdoing in resorting to violence, after years of pent-up anger towards him and the rest of the family, it all finally erupted. Thankfully, my family chose not to pursue legal action, sparing me from being tried as an adult in court. Consequently, I was sent to reside with my paternal aunt, a 48-year-old woman who had become estranged from the family and resided in a city approximately 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them. At first it was tough, but later on, with support from my aunts and her husband at 48 male, it moved on from wanting a relationship with them. I transferred to a different high school and attended a university in my aunt's city and graduated as an electrical engineer. I later met my wife and got married to her name at the time of my wedding. Thought about inviting them, but went against it because I did not want any sort of drama to my wedding from that point. Me and my wife bought a house an hour away from my ends and were blessed with a daughter a year ago. About a week ago, I received a Facebook message from a mother and father wanting to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them that I would consider it as I possibly have other plans, but would give them a clear answer soon. Later on, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me. My wife has told me that if I decided to go, she and my daughter would spend Christmas at my father-in-law's house, as she does not have to deal with unwanted stress, as she is 2 months pregnant. I concur with her viewpoint. Those who are reading this, I am uncertain about whether I should make an attempt to mend my relationship with my family or not. I am deeply conflicted about which course of action to pursue. On one side, there is a possibility that they regret their actions towards me and wish to offer an apology. On the other hand, if I do go, they might insist that I apologize to Carl, which is something I am unwilling to do. Any advice would be helpful. Now, for the top advice before reading the update, I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives. It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not so much about you, which would be hurtful to you. Yeah, I agree. Go another time else thinking the same thing. It could be something related to the grandkids. Spend Christmas with your wife, a child. Christmas is too big of an event to meet them. Also, update us. I can't get this post out of my hand. I can't imagine a parent's kicking out their child who was betrayed by their other child. They might want to reconnect due to money. Grandchild? I don't know. But it's weird that even his siblings texted Opie. I hope it's for good reasons, though. I honestly would spend Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why Christmas? They could have reached out at any time and given you a chance to pick a convenient time as they're the ones trying to amend things. I'm not sure about it. It appears strange to me. Personally, I wouldn't go unless you truly desire to have them back in your life. It's all about appearances. They discovered that Opie has a child and is doing well, and now they are attempting to mend the family so they don't appear like a disgrace. Remember, they abandoned their son many years ago. It feels like a deceptive situation. It's worth noting that they didn't start with any regret or indication of an apology. They want something: money-free work, an organ, access to your babies, or just to look good to their friends. I'm not saying don't go, but keep your expectations low. Be ready for the "we need you to do X for us in order to properly reconcile" speech and have a quick exit prepared. I don't know. As a parent, I cannot fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years after my other child did something so cruel to him. So he hit him. That is just inconceivable to me. Now, totally understand if my son hit his brother. If he ever did something like that, may be wrong. And I know I'm not supposed to say that, but we're all still human. Whether you can move past the fact they abandoned you to your arms and turned their backs for 8 years is your choice. But personally, I don't know if I could. If you can't and don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame you. If they do, they don't know the full story. If they do know the full story, then they're not worth your time either. And now for the update. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. My wife started experiencing excruciating pain in her abdomen area just 2 days after Christmas, making it almost impossible for her to stand. Her sister, a 30-year-old woman, and I rushed her to the hospital. It was there that we received the devastating news that my wife had endured a miscarriage, requiring immediate removal of the fetus. The most difficult task for me was honestly explaining the complications surrounding the operation to my wife. My wife was forced to stay for 2 more days. Honestly, I have been trying to stay strong for my wife and my daughter, but honestly, I'm struggling right now. Also, the updates of the original post. Most of you that commented on the same day post had told me not to spend Christmas with them because of the significance of that holiday. I agree and decided I would spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them? When I texted them this, I assumed they would try to argue with me, but rather they said they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I began to do some digging into my family to try to figure out why they have reached out. Michael is a corporate lawyer who works for a major company in my hometown. But looking through his Facebook page, she has 2 daughters and was married to his wife in 2016. Sarah appears to be married to a doctor. She herself, 8 years ago, is studying to be a nurse, and they have a son together. I have a friend who lives in my hometown and has parents who are friends with my parents. When I asked her about Sarah, she told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago after he had committed mail fraud. Carl got married to Amy Wise after high school, and they have 2 kids together. I cannot exactly figure out what he or his wife does for a living through Facebook, but judging that they bought a big house last year in the midst of a pandemic tells me they are not really struggling. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is really into the wellness community and then began to list the reasons of why they wanted to possibly reach out to me now. It is highly unlikely that money is the reason why I am not receiving financial assistance, as my parents had a higher combined salary than my wife and I did 8 years ago. Additionally, considering that my siblings are not experiencing financial struggles, further supports this notion. While organ donation could potentially be a factor, it does not seem probable. However, a commenter mentioned the possibility that Carvel, being my twin, would be the most likely match for me. Despite this, I find it unlikely due to the fact that he was recently tagged in a Facebook post scheme shortly before Christmas. 3. Regarding my daughter, they could possibly be reaching out to me to have a relation to my daughter, but I honestly am not sure. My daughter is not the first granddaughter for my parents, so I do not know why they want to meet her. The most likely found out my daughter existed because my wife's Facebook account was public. She has since private on her account, but then contacted my aunt. These changed, wanted took me in informing her about the situation, and she explained to me why they were reaching out to me after all this time to understand the situation. You need to understand why my aunt was estranged. My paternal grandpa, 79 male, and grandmom, 76 female, had 4 children. My dad was the second oldest, and my aunt's was the third. My aunt, after college, came out to her parents as bisexual and began dating her girlfriend. My grandparents immediately disowned her and refused to have any contact with her. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reach out. About a month ago, my grandpa had been asking about me and what I was doing in life, and whether I was married or had kids. My aunt responded by calling my grandpa out for wanting to know about me after he supported Carl for what he did. That is when the whole situation changes. My grandpa told my aunt that it's because I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, so I deserved to be estranged. My grandpa is a religious nut, so he looks down on cheating. He had been told by my family that after Different, who I allegedly cheated with, confessed to Amy. She wanted Carl and Sarah for support and comfort. But when I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked Carl and Sarah. While Sarah was the one who tried to break me and Carl apart, I did not lay a finger on her, and I did not do that to Carl. As my aunt shared this with me, I was completely taken aback. I couldn't fathom the extent of their hatred towards me, as they resorted to fabricating a massive and dreadful falsehood about me, which they spread far and wide. My aunt later disclosed the whole truth to Grandpa, including what had actually transpired. When she informed me that Grandpa was astonished because he had always held a positive opinion of Carl, it further shocked me. My grandma, but then asked my aunt for my number, which she declined to give. It figured out why my parents and siblings wanted to get in touch with me. It turns out my grandpa had told my parents and my siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. For context, he is a multimillionaire, so that is why they reached out to me not to apologize about how they all wronged me in the past, but rather because if they did not, they would not get anything from Grandpa. What a bunch of greedy people. After hearing about this from my aunt, I decided to block all of them. Why should I respond to them? At this point, all of them are dead to me. I have a wife to support after what she went through at a family that respects me and my in-laws. However, this does not end here. As 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number in my work phone. Due to my profession, I've grown accustomed to receiving calls from unfamiliar numbers. However, when I answered this particular call, I was surprised to hear my grandfather's familiar voice. It is highly likely that he obtained my contact information from my company's website. Without delay, he began by expressing his regrets for not making an effort to reach out to me in the past 8 years. He sincerely apologized for his absence during significant occasions such as my graduation, wedding, and the birth of my daughter. I was not really close to him before, so him cutting me off did not bother me. Later in a call, he told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family that he is cutting them off his will and adding me to it. I honestly do not know how to feel about that, as do many would be helpful, but at the same time, I do not want him to use those as a way to force a relationship between me and my daughter. We talked for about half an hour. The way to call once made me think that perhaps I could build a good relationship with my grandpa. But then he told me something that got me really pissed. He told me that he was disappointed and that my daughter had not taken a family name for context. After I got married to my wife, the issue of what last name to use as a couple came up. For some legal reasons, I was unable to change my last name to my wife's last name, but we decided as a couple that all of our future children would have her last name. I, at this point, unloaded on my grandpa, calling him is senile old man and many other hurtful things and told him to never contact me ever again. After everything I've endured, I refuse to allow this man to use his boldness as an excuse. I won't let the money I inherited control me. Even if I do receive the funds, I intend to donate them to a nearby charitable organization. However, considering his history of deceit, it's highly improbable. These recent weeks have been incredibly challenging, but I'm determined to overcome them. My wife has private at her Facebook account, and my in-laws have done the same, but they do. To try to contact me is beyond me. How they would probably hire a private detective to try to find me. I believe they do not know where I live. But you never know. I've thought to get a restraining order, but given that there are lawyers within a family means getting a restraining order will be hard. I did not really get any time to answer any questions given in my last post before it was deleted for some reason. I will do my best to answer any questions for the next day or two, but after this, I'm done using the site for a while. Thank you for all your advice that I wish you all the best in this new year. I'm so sorry for your loss, Obi. I can't begin to imagine the pain you and your wife must be experiencing right now. Your family is just absolutely chock full of some of the worst a house have ever heard of, and the effing audacity of them as a matched. They do not deserve any more of your energy. Screw them all. I sincerely hope that further pursuit from them will cease, allowing you to concentrate on your family and the comfort of your home. Thank you for providing us with updates, and I will keep your family in my thoughts. I offer my apologies for your loss, and I genuinely hope for a swift recovery for your wife. Your family has been facing a challenging few weeks, but please don't allow those individuals to affect you. I have to say, besides Grandpa's awful comments about the last name, at least the truth is out to make those people look bad, Grant, but can keep the money if it comes your way before you do something. Think about it. When you are calm, you chose good people to be family. Your wife, daughter, in-laws. At end, they're all that matter her. The others can go to hell. I'm sorry for what you've been through and for the loss of your child. Remember, you have supports and a family that loves you. You are wanted and loved by them. Even if your parents and siblings aren't those people, you are not alone. Seek professional supports and help for yourself and your wife. It's a lot you've gone through. Regrettably, the new variant has caused a delay. Sharing the burden with your grandfather might have persuaded him to disregard your aunt's claims and provide your family with their rightful inheritance, particularly because they attempted to portray your son as extremely troubled and emphasized any minor conflicts with him. It was understandable for you to feel offended, but he ultimately chose to harm you instead of resolving the issue. The guy must be old, is going to have old-fashioned values. Did you try explaining that? It's something that's done in society nowadays? Or did you see red immediately? To be honest, you've had a really rough time of things, and I imagine that must have been the straw that broke the camel's back, right? I just figured you might want a fresh perspective. Much love to you, man. I really hope your missus gets better quickly and your 2022 improves quickly. To be honest, right now, I do not care how he sees me. I do not want to have a relationship with him on a basis on many. This may ruin the relationship my aunts and grandpa have, but to begin with, they never really had a relationship.